Go.
Tim, welcome. Thanks so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
You're the author of 3 massive top-selling publications.
Oh, geez, massive top. Not as big as Harry Potter.
No, I love the modesty. It's funny because I came across you, it's like the universe collided and everyone was telling me that I need to speak to you, whether it be Bishop from Stormrake, whether it be Adrian from Crypto Tax Australia. And I'm really glad that you
Great guys. Love the guys. And you mentioned Adam Hudson,
yes.
Matthew Fraser. Great guys.
Yes.
What I'm finding is that there's this new sort of group of podcasters out there that are kind of banding together.
Yes.
And, we've got similar clients and similar messages and similar kind of, we're at similar points in our journey, even though we're all different ages. I mean, I just turned 35 yesterday, even though I look 58.
I think a key word there is educators. That's who I love partnering with, people who are not just, I spoke to you yesterday explaining exactly what we do as a business, and it's people who are not just giving signals or do this, and then people don't understand why they're doing that. You're explaining the educational process, giving a framework so people can actually work off that and make good decisions, which is a phrase that I really love that you have.
Make good choices.
Yeah.
There it is there.
Yes.
This is really, and there's something you said just before about being real and being authentic. People need, I think the events of 2020 to 2022, everybody can remember those 2 years, people lost a lot of faith and trust in people that they used to trust. And I think our channel started just out of that in 2022, in the April. And I had no other ulterior motive than the same as yours, is to educate.
Yeah,
that was it.
Absolutely.
Wasn't chasing the dollar, wasn't after fame, fortune or glory. I mean, we started with like 3 people on our channel and 2 of them were my kids and the other one was me. And it was no one's listening, no one cares. And it was grind for so long. In fact, I gave up after the first year. I quit.
Yep.
I'd reached 500 followers and I thought, this is never going to happen.
Yeah.
And almost to the day when I went to quit the channel, because I just thought, is it just that...
Is anyone listening,
Well, you don't know. You don't know whether is it my message? Is it the way I'm coming across? Is it just not an interesting topic?
Yeah.
Every podcaster goes through this.
Yeah.
Is it just no one... do I need to be like a half-naked teenage girl doing dancing? I tried that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But suddenly, after a year, I went to quit my channel 3 times on my journey, and the man upstairs or whatever you believe in out there said, no, you're going to keep going.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I remember saying, I'm done with this. I'm just going to do one more post and I'm switching the channel off because this is a lot of work. I was basically bankrupt out of COVID.
Yeah.
Everyone was bankrupt out of COVID. And it was this day. It was this one day. I thought I'll just make this video, and then it went viral. And it was the most, it's like I was saying before, it's this random video that I thought, no one's going to care about this, so I'll just make this random
video. And that's the one that gets the message out.
It took off. We went from like 500 followers to 10,000 followers in about 3 days, 4 days. Maybe a bit longer. I might be exaggerating, but that's what I remember it as. And I went, all right, wow. Okay, and I was still bankrupt, but now I was bankrupt with 10,000 followers.
Yeah, you had a base there. But, I suppose, talk to me about Beat the Reset. What is it, what's the main message that you're getting out there, and what is it that you guys do as a business?
The main message is the 3 words on my channel is about making good choices. And the only way you can make good choices is if you understand your world and understand the journey. A lot of people don't understand the journey. A lot of people don't understand, I talk constantly about the 5 pillars of power: educational, political, ecclesiastical, monetary, and health. These are all massive. These are all what I call controlled areas. And people don't understand them. COVID was a clear example of how people don't understand their world, in my opinion. Again, this is my view. But I'm a researcher, and I research, my research is vast. And it's a simple thing for me. I'm trying to understand what this place is because I've got 4 children. And when you become a dad, and one day you'll be a dad, and you will know, because one day you're going to look into the eyes of your firstborn child, and suddenly you're going to become the 3rd most important person in your life. I'll say that because you're going to have a wife as well.
There you go.
When you're a young guy, you're the most important person.
Yep.
It's about you. Then you meet a beautiful lady and you get married.
Yep.
You might have some experience in that.
Yep. Getting married next week.
Now you become the 2nd most important person in your life.
Yep.
Then you have a child. Now you're the 3rd, and you keep moving down the bench, right? And then by the time you got a small basketball team like I got 4 kids, you realise that the only thing that matters here is the protection of your family. And the only way you can do that is by two things. One, keep yourself in pristine health, because you're no good to your family if you have no health.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two is learn. Learn everything and learn anything, but make sure when you're learning, you are being discerning about what you're doing. In other words, if your view of education is go and watch the Channel 9 news or go and read the Herald Sun, the question becomes, is that learning?
Yeah, yep.
Is that going to save your family? I would say probably no. Is Wikipedia the answer? Maybe not. Is Google the answer? So you've got to
dig deeper,
right? You're a thinker. I can tell straight away you're an educator. And the question is, why do we educate? And how do people know that they're getting the right information? So my job is to protect my family, and I extended that to I need to protect my fellow man. And anybody that wants to follow my channel, I will protect you with the information that I think is the best information I can give you. I'm not saying I'm the smartest person in the world, and I'm not saying I've got all the answers. But what I'm saying is, and you would know this from being a trader and an investor, that all I can share with you is the best that I could do for myself.
Yes.
If I would do it, I would tell you to do it.
Yeah, and it's a lot about understanding money. It's about understanding the financial system, how it's corrupt. It's about understanding how to better position yourself.
Right.
And I think going back to making the right choices.
Correct.
You know, a lot of people, and I'm a finance guy, you know, I'm an investor. I want to set up wealth is a lot about what I think about as a young guy at the moment. And that's what we preach. But a lot of people, when they think wealth, they think they have to do it instantly.
Right.
You know, how can I quickly do this in 1 year?
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's like people who lose weight. Or go to the gym.
Yes.
People who go to the gym, right?
Yep.
They think they have to be fit. People say, I used to do gym, I used to do gymnastics for years, and people used to come to the gym and go, I'm not fit, so should I wait until I'm fit before I join the gym? You know, they think that you've got to be fit. Like, if you're overweight, don't go to the gym.
Yeah.
It's like people who say, I had this lady the other day saying, you know, we coughed in front of this lady, and she said, please don't cough in front of me, I've got to go to hospital. I said, don't you go to hospital when you're not well? She goes, I've got to be well to go to hospital. It's this weird mentality. I've got to be smart to go to university.
Yeah.
I've got to be fit to go to the gym. I've got to have wealth to talk to a wealth guy.
That's it.
They come to you and go, I'm not wealthy.
Yeah.
I feel ashamed. It's like, that's why you're here.
Yes, that's the most important person to go out and reach help is when you don't have it. You know, I think it's a combination between having a bit of discipline, having a bit of, you know, patience, but also, you know, I think we're a society of instant gratification. You know,
100%.
We've been fed Instagram feeds that need to be quick and punchy. We've been fed dopamine hits left, right, and center.
Yes.
And people aren't willing to go through a little bit of struggle. So
that's interesting you say that. Now, that is what you just said is so critical, because when I first started on socials, it was the longest Instagram video you could put up was 15 minutes. And now they've shrunk it down to 3 minutes, and that's on a post. And then Reels are like 1:30, and it's getting smaller. And then TikTok is like, if it's longer than 3 seconds, you'd pretty much cook, because kids are like flicking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you think about what we know about our professions. Can you explain it in 3 seconds?
No.
I mean, you're a young guy. I mean, this is your challenge as well.
Yeah.
So TikTok, I don't know if TikTok's something you guys do.
Yeah, we're all across all of it, really.
But it's a different audience. I mean, you literally, as you said, what you need to have is these high-powered bang. How do you make this look sexy? How do you make wealth appeal to a 17-year-old that just wants to see young boys dancing, you know?
It's one of those it's the thing that you've kind of, you've got to look at it as, if you can't beat it, you sometimes have to join it, but you need to funnel them towards. So, you know, we will spend time doing those short punchy messages, but ultimately it's to funnel them towards, say, YouTube, where they can start learning in more of a conversation like you and I are having, and ultimately to get in touch with us. And once you're in touch with us, that's when you can start, you know, learning more about what does it actually take to build wealth? What does it take to stay safe with cryptocurrency? But today is more about yourself, Tim. I want to get into.
Far away.
I want to understand. Very soon, I want to get into, obviously, gold and silver's going bananas at the moment. I want to get a bit of your opinion on that. But before I do, talk me through some of, you know, the client engagement that you've had. There was some awesome numbers you mentioned in terms of how much Bullion has transacted through BTR. Beat the Reset. But yeah, talk me a bit about your business and who you're helping. And
we've got two companies. One of them is Beat the Reset Proprietary Limited, and that is the educational arm of what we do. That is pretty much it. It's the research arm and the educational arm. It started, as I said, it started in the April of 2022. No one cared. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to write a book. So I wrote a book. I mean, it's no mean feat to write a book, because everybody says they're going to write a book. You know, how many people say, oh, I should write a book?
Yeah.
Well, I wrote a book.
Yeah.
And it was called Things We Were Never Told About Money. And it was I'm not a finance guy, I'm a monetary guy. So I see these as very, very different. And I had been researching monetary systems for forever. And I really just got down to the simple fact that commodities and anything of value that comes out of the ground and anything that can hold value over time is pretty much monetary. So I decided to write a book. It was the smallest book you've ever seen. My kids call it the pamphlet. They go, Dad, you could get this in a brochure at a shop. But I turned it into a book.
Yeah.
And look, it was 95 pages and it was simple. It was written simply. It was very, very, I'm glad I didn't write it now, because I think I'd be too technical now. I think it was good when I wrote it because I had a much more simplistic view. You know, you always think of yourself like, if you thought, all right, what was, if I went back 10 years, how did I see crypto back then? You would have explained crypto to me 10 years ago, not even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, very different to what you would explain now. So when you write a book, what you notice is, when you go back and read it years later, you go, oh, geez, did I write that?
Yeah,
you know?
do
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Does it
I
make
know
sense?
what you mean. I've journaled a little bit in my life, and like you go back and read, and you're like,
oh, terrible. What are you doing? So I went back, and I haven't actually reread the book, but it did incredibly well. So this book sold all over the world, and people loved it, and it got people into investment, and they wanted to know who this bloke in the hat was, because there was a picture of me in the hat on the front. And then they found me and started following my work. And then a year later, in 2023, I wrote another book because what I'd noticed was I was getting a lot of questions around things that I hadn't mentioned in my first book. And I thought, well, maybe I should just put all of those questions into another book. So I wrote another book, which was much, much bigger this time. My kids didn't call it the pamphlet. They called it the fat brochure this time. It's like, thanks.
Upgrade.
Well, because Harry Potter's this thick and mine wasn't. And I said, well, it's not about size. All these people have this thing about size, right? So anyway, my point is I wrote this book called The Great Asset Shift. And what it was all about was the silver, effectively the history of silver, and why silver was forever. And this is long before the bull markets of today.
Yeah.
This was
ahead of the time.
Ahead of the time. It wasn't gold in the end for me that was the great asset. It was actually silver. And I used to have this conversation. People used to say, isn't it gold? I said, no, you don't want gold. You want silver. If you want incredible movement in assets, that's the one that's going to be the big one, based on my personal research. And I don't follow anybody, and I don't. So that was my second book, and that was called The Great Asset Shift. And then in 2025, I'd written another book. In fact, interesting when you write books, because my books have been written out of the questions and the conversations around the channel. So you get, on the channel, you get direct engagement. A client will ask you a question, and you'll answer that question directly. But what you realise is the client's actually asking a bigger question. They're just simplifying it into a single question. For example, it could be, tell me why Bitcoin's good for me. What they're really asking you, though, is they're not asking you about Bitcoin. They're saying, I would like to be wealthy, and will this increase my position? So I guess I took all these peripheral things that I was hearing in people's questions, and I was noting them down thinking, I really need to write another book.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot here.
Yeah.
So then I wrote my third book. And when I started writing my third book, it started as a completely different book. And then it's like when you write a song. Right, you're a musician, and you start writing a song, and you go, actually, nah. And you put that on the back burner, and you start writing another song, because it gives you ideas, generate ideas. So I ended up with two books. One, so the book that I ended up releasing is called 2033, and it was a look at the world in 2033. And it was my view. I'm not saying that is exactly how it'll be, but it was based on a lot of my own research, and it was 100 years from the last reset, which was 1933. That's why the cover of the book is actually, we modified it to look like a futuristic version of 1933. It's crazy, but anyway. So that book has been unbelievable seller all over the world. I did it in audio as well. I had never done audio before.
Yep.
Let me tell you, recording an audio book, oh yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
Putting headphones on in a studio for 3 or 4 days. Well, if I get you to read a passage of a book, even though you wrote it, it's so crazy that you can't read it, and you suffer fatigue. What I wasn't counting in is I did 3 days straight of recording this book, and my point is that even though I'd written it, the mistakes as you're talking, you trip over your words, you spell the word, and you can't leave it like that because you're recording an audio book. So you've got to go, and then you start swearing, then you kick the cat, then and I'd gone away to record. I went to a remote location to surround myself with beautiful.
Yep, get in the right headspace for
in
it.
the zone, right? It's like if you want to write a beautiful love song, you want to surround yourself with beautiful things. So that was my third book, and that one has been insane because it talks about Bitcoin.
Yep.
It talks about the digital twin cities. It talks about the AI and where it's going and the algorithms and where this whole thing is really going to be in 2033. It talks about asset tokenization, what's going to happen to land titles, what's going to really happen. And people are like, what? Is this crazy? And the great thing is I wrote it so you could research everything I said. So it was like, I will make a crazy statement like hyperbitcoinization. And people go, nah, this guy's cooked. They'll type in hyperbitcoinization, like, oh my God. It actually says it's a thing.
Yeah,
right?
gotcha.
They'd never heard of it. It's like, oh, okay. And what it does is it reinforces credibility as you're writing, because whilst I'm taking everything and extrapolating. It's always a challenging thing to do as a writer, is to push the curve out 6 or 7, 8 years, because it may not age well, right? So what I do is I look at history. And I go, okay, but what happened? Is there any example of a hyperbitcoinization? We've ever seen anything like this? And the answer is, well, no, if you look at it digitally, but yes, if you look at it from a commodities perspective, we have done it. The future is just an echo of the past, often.
Explain what hyperbitcoinization is. What do you mean by it?
Well, so I took the concept of hyperbitcoinization, and that is really a world where Bitcoin is fundamentally the monetary system, essentially, in a nutshell. So at the moment we've got currency. The USD is the current reserve currency. Hyperbitcoinization is a world that adopts Bitcoin as its lifeblood, if you like, as a monetary asset. But I took it a little bit further, and the reason I took it further, and it's become a really interesting topic, is because I've researched commodities and extensive knowledge of the confiscations of gold and the history of the 30s and the banking acts and everything that. Look, I could talk for hours about that.
Yeah.
But my point is, the question I asked when I was writing the chapter on hyperbitcoinization is, could Bitcoin realistically become a monetary asset globally? Could it really be that? And have we ever seen it? And the answer was yes. The answer was we saw it in 1944 at Bretton Woods when they signed gold as the US became the world reserve currency for the first time, took over from the British pound. And I realized that what people had missed with Bitcoin was something critical. And it's not about Bitcoin. It's not about that. It's about control. It's about power. It's about anonymity. So the only other asset that had that was gold.
Yep.
But gold is not Bitcoin. But that was then, and this is now. But did they share something similar? And the question I asked is, are they both monetary? And the answer is yes, they are. So I, in my first book, listed the around seven different elements you need to have a monetary asset. Things like, is it portable? Is it instantly recognizable? Is it homogeneous? Can it be broken into other parts? Could it be reserve status? All of these things. Is it decentralized? Does it have zero counterparty risk? Is it undervalued? These are all things that make a monetary asset. Does it hold value over time? Doesn't matter that it's digital. Who cares?
Yeah.
Is it rare? And is it too rare? So what you can have in monetary assets is you can get rarity, which creates value. But if you get something that's too rare, it is no longer monetary. It crosses the curve. I'll give you an example. The Mona Lisa painting.
Yep.
How many are there?
One.
Right, apart from all the fakes.
Yeah.
So there's one. So the question is, does the Mona Lisa hold value over time? Yes, it's incredibly valuable. but it can't be monetary because it can't be broken down into homogeneous parts.
And that's kind of the unique part about Bitcoin, that
you're missing some of the elements of a monetary asset. So it is monetary in the sense that it holds value over time, but it can't be used as a monetary asset because there's only one of them. So what you have is rarity is fantastic. Bitcoin has rarity, 21 million Bitcoin by the year 2140-ish, somewhere there. So you have rarity in an asset like Bitcoin, but if it was any rarer, then it wouldn't be usable as a monetary asset.
It has to be, it's fractionalized. That's the word. You can fractionalize it down to a 0.000001 Satoshi.
Right. So this is where hyperbitcoinization comes in, right?
Gotcha.
Right. Now you're onto it. So I realized that, at the time it was a $2 trillion market cap, too small, not enough liquidity in it. There's only, Bitcoin's 21 million. We've only got 19.5 million circulation. The others won't be minted until 2140-ish, 2130, 2140, whatever. That's another 100 and something years away. So has it got enough, and is it rare enough? Is it in that kind of range of being able to be monetary? And the answer is yes. And at Bretton Woods, the same thing happened. There's only 200,000 tons of gold above the ground. In the entire history of mankind, doesn't matter how you want to swing this, we only know of 200,000 tons of gold in the history of mankind, which when you melt it down, it fits into a 23 cubic metre block. 23 cubic metre block is every ounce of gold on the planet. So how on earth did they do it at Bretton Woods then is the question. And they did it through a similar mechanism to Bitcoin. And that was that gold, people said, oh, well, the US dollar was pegged to gold. And my question was, what was the unit of account? Was it gold? People used to say to me, yes, the unit of account for the central banks is gold. That is not a unit of account. Bitcoin is not a unit of account. That is the unit of reserve. So when you hear gold spoken about, this is a really important point, and it's hard for people to get their head around this point. But when you talk about gold as a unit of account, what do central banks have in their vaults? They have gold. That doesn't tell you anything.
That's where my brain's going here, is the verifiable nature of Bitcoin. It's all on chain. You can see exactly where it is. If governments had to use that as a backing, then you can really hold them accountable to it.
Which is the fantastic comment, because gold suffered from the problem that it's not accountable.
Correct.
Despite the
Hence the collapse of Bretton Woods.
Well, despite the fact that the US created Fort Knox, and they claimed to put the confiscated gold of the, not just the confiscated gold of the common man, but they also confiscated the gold, the Treasury, a lot of people don't realise this, confiscated the gold of the Federal Reserve, and they had them over a barrel, and they went and put it into Fort Knox and Denver and some other places, but they never proved it. They never proved it. Fort Knox is a military facility, and you're not allowed to go there. So what they're telling is a little bit like their moon landing. It's like, well, we did it.
We're waiting for the audit.
Right. Well, they did audits. But they all disappeared.
Of course.
And there were only two public viewings, one in 1954 and one in 1970. One in 1953 and one in 1974. There were two public viewings, and what they did is they took you. There were 16 vaults at Fort Knox, and they took you in there and they said, well, look, there it is. They opened up a door and went, there it is, and they closed it. Now, you weren't allowed to touch it. You couldn't assay it, which you can't. In other words, you can't measure you could see.
You're getting a 2D vision of it.
Well, I mean, if I said to you, look, here's a Bitcoin wallet, showed you, and you went, I mean, the question is, was it gold? I mean, no one actually touched any of the bars.
Exactly.
They weren't assayed, which means they weren't evaluated for quality. I mean, were they 88% gold? Were they 90% gold? Were they 100%? What were they? We can't have 100%. But my point is, this was all just conjecture, and this was done as a public exercise to prove to the public, well, we've got the gold. Now, there's just over 8,000 metric tons apparently on the books of the US. Well, they've never proven that, because under freedom of information, if you try to ask the US government for proof of their gold, they can't prove it. Now, Bitcoin has a very different position here, because you could prove it, right? Now, Bretton Woods 1944, here's my point. Where the sudden realization came to me with the chapter I wrote on hyperbitcoinization, which has been scrutinized by some of the most incredible people, I realized something hit me like a brick. At Bretton Woods, gold was not the unit of account. It was the troy ounce that was the unit of account. And in the East, they used the gram, and in the 19th century, we used the grain. So you had grains, grams, troy ounces. Grains, grams, troy ounces. And I thought, Bitcoin doesn't have that. And then when I was talking to some of the guys...
One measure, right? Just Satoshi.
Right, but it did have that. Satoshi and MBTC was the other one. So I now had my grams and my troy ounces. I had Satoshi, the gram, or the grain, and I had my troy ounce, which is the MBTC, and then I had the unit of reserve, which is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin for me, Bitcoin and gold, then down to the troy ounce matched the MBTC, then down to the Satoshi matched the gram. And I went, well, so MBTC essentially for me is like the troy ounce. That was the unit of account in the West. In the East, it was the gram. So in other words, the West used gold as gold as its reserve, MBTC as its unit of account, and in the East, they used gold as reserve and gram as its unit of account.
Right. So
what I'm saying is Bitcoin has these things. Bitcoin is a part of the strategic reserve assets of the US Treasury now. Strategic. Bitcoin, this is a very important word that they added. And it's got MBTC, can be broken into MBTC and can be broken into Satoshi. Now, that gave me what I was looking for. That means this is truly could be used as a reserve level asset with that kind of breakdown compared to gold, which could do the same in the troy ounce and gram area. And forget grains. We don't really use grains much anymore. But it had the same things.
Yes.
Unit of reserve, units of account. And I thought, these are the same asset. This has got to be.
Very interesting, yeah.
And then, so hyperbitcoinization is the breaking up of Bitcoin into its increments so that it can be used as units of account. Because there's not enough, otherwise there's not enough Bitcoin. At 21 million, there's not enough. But you break that into MBTC, and then, as you know, Satoshi, well, you could easily have Satoshi as a currency system.
Yeah, I like the thinking. I really do. For me personally, Bitcoin, whether it becomes a strategic reserve or whatever it is, for me, it's something that it's very hard to verify something with limited value now. Like even with gold, which I love, I own gold to have as a store of value. But you could find an asteroid, you could find something out there that increases the supply. Whereas with Bitcoin, there is only 21 million. That is 100% verified. The level of security of the network now compared to 10 years ago when I really started getting into Bitcoin is so much higher with how much hash power we have backing the network.
Yes.
Back 10 years ago, it was a concern of mine, but it was a very risk-on asset to expose yourself to.
Yes.
It was a different part of my portfolio back then. But now with so much hash power behind it, I'm very confident, other than this, topic that we talk about, which is the, computers getting incredibly powerful and we're getting quantum computing. That is maybe the only asterisk that I have on security of the network. But outside of that, 21 million Bitcoin, that being a fixed number, I have confidence in putting my wealth into it as an asset to hold long term.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing for me. Everything else is a bonus. If we get it to the point that, worlds are using it as the pegged value, then unbelievable. If it comes a world currency, unbelievable. But even without all that, that's what I talk to people about. It is so valuable in its current stance, let alone what it could be.
Well, gold, it's interesting. So great comments. I mean, you've really, this is really what we're about here is this incredible sharing of knowledge exchange. You've got some fabulous stuff you've added there. But for me, the thing about Bitcoin is it's the new digital gold. And I don't mean that in the sense that, there's these digital gold places out there that sell you digital gold. I'm talking in terms of it is a representation exactly of Bretton Woods system, which was reserve value. So reserve status just means value. I mean, gold is a value system. That's it. People say to me, well, what's gold worth? Well, that depends what you compare it to.
Sure.
I mean, if
you could do it to US dollars, something.
You're a foreign exchange guy. You've seen the way you can change values. You can have 1 million somethings over here and 5 somethings over here. And gold is only really valued in terms of what it can purchase for you, or a value system is really only, really what you can exchange for it. And will anybody accept it? And what's the confidence? I mean, gold has enormous confidence because it always holds its value.
Value to me is over time, does it increase my purchasing power? So it doesn't matter what you're comparing it to over time. Am I going to be able to buy more houses with that Bitcoin? Am I going to be able to buy more, whatever it is, cars, property? But it doesn't matter. But will it increase my purchasing power over time?
Right.
Not will it be more Australian dollars, which is of course it will be, because they've been printing the shit out of it, so.
Well, the interesting thing is we're moving to central bank digital currencies. Not my words, words of the Bank for International Settlements. Augustin Carstens has come out many times. Their own white papers show that. European Central Bank, at the start of this year, Christine Lagarde, head of the European Central Bank, we're moving to central bank digital currencies. They basically said we're going to do it, whether you like it or not, which means they are losing confidence in the euro. They're losing confidence in the US dollar. The US dollar compared to its gold price in 1913 has 1 cent of buying power. That's it. I mean, its gold price in 1913 was $20.67 per troy ounce. The same comparison now is US dollars valued at 5,000, what is it, 5,000 US...
5,100
US dollars. I mean, this is how far this currency has fallen in comparison to a wealth asset like gold. Gold is still, to this day, constitutionally, it's the only monetary asset mentioned in the US Constitution, Article 25. It says a debt can only be extinguished using gold coin, which means that your value system is around assets like gold. So we only, at Beat the Reset, we only have 3 assets. People think that we have all these assets. We don't. We have 3 fundamental assets, which is physical gold, physical silver, and Bitcoin. They're the only 3 we have. People go, well, Bitcoin's just fairy dust. It's just a figment of your imagination. I say to them, can I ask you where your currency is right now? My currency's in my commercial bank. So your commercial bank has what? Coins, notes?
No backing.
Digits on a screen.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that you're okay using a currency that is literally can't do it, backed by nothing, can't do any. Look, you'd know this. Go to the US, go to Europe. Try use your currencies there, guys.
Yeah.
Against the euro, against the British pound,
you're broke in months.
Right? Yeah, like seriously, a latte costs you double, right? Yeah. So this is what you're using. Yet people use strange arguments when it comes to Bitcoin. They want to not. The reason they don't want it is not because it's a fabulous asset. It's because if you're right. If I'm right, if people that are invested in Bitcoin are right, it means they're wrong.
Yes. Well, I think, that's the big thing that we talk about is the education. So it's not that they don't like it or they don't see it valuable, it's they don't understand it. And it's you have to get involved with it to understand it. That's the big thing. I could sit in a room with someone for 3 days until I feel like they understand it, but until they go and buy it, until they go and hold it, until they see in a year or two's time, okay, yes, it's a bit volatile, but over the long run, my value or my wealth has gone up. Yeah. That's when they start to appreciate it.
Well, look, everybody hates on any asset that they see the spot price going down. But, we have this saying at Beat the Reset. If your real estate was on a spot market, you wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's only that you can see that Bitcoin's trading price every day. But price doesn't indicate value. This is a different thing because, and I'll tell you why. At the moment, people talk about Bitcoin in terms of USD. That's the world reserve currency. But the USD... It's interesting when you talk about that, but the USD, you're comparing it to something that has no value. So what you're saying is you're taking an asset that has rarity and value and comparing it to something that doesn't. Now, here's where the rubber hits the road, and this is where it's very difficult for people to understand what's going to happen here. But we're going to go through some kind of currency shift, not because I said it. And people say, oh, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, that's only because you haven't read enough. It's nothing to do with my conspiracies. It's just that, I'll say to people, well, have you seen the white papers from the Bank for International Settlements? Who's the Bank for International Settlements? Well, they're the central banker's bank. What's a central bank? It's like, okay.
That's the point that they kind of lose interest, right? Because they realise there's so much I don't understand. I'd rather stick in my little
It's like, do real estate, do cash in the bank.
Yeah,
right?
Of what I understand. But it's like, well, look at the majority of people that are in that mindset and where are they in 10, 20, 30 years? They're stuck in this system of still trying to pay off their first house and not getting ahead. So unless you're in assets that can outrun inflation. Now, I had a lady come to me the other day. She said, look, I'm worried that, maybe Bitcoin isn't the real deal and gold and silver. I'm worried about these assets. I said, why would you be? She goes, well, a friend of mine said they barely outrun inflation. I said,
Well, okay, but the question is, which inflation figure are you listening to? Are you listening to the Channel 9 version of inflation, or are you actually actively out there looking at the actual value, what is happening with debasement, currency debasement, right? And she got the message, and I said, because what's going to happen here is they're going to keep you gridlocked. What the Western governments are going to do here, the Eastern Alliance, the BRICS nations, are already clearly trying to break away from USD. I mean, they're going through de-dollarization, but you go over to the West, the Commonwealth nations, and they're keeping everybody in this USD, and they keep you, every now and then, the US dollar's strong. Compared to what exactly? You've got the Dixie, and it's not even the US dollar, it's a basket of currencies, and it's a basket of how the USD performs against a whole lot of other crap currencies that are crapper than itself. And but interestingly enough, where was I going with that? CBDCs, this is where this goes, because fiat currencies have to fail. They can't do anything but. The US dollar, what people don't realise, I did this podcast with this person that said to me, well, the US dollar's strong. And I said, really? And they said, the US dollar's never crashed. Name a time in history the US dollar crashed. I said, October 20th, 1929. October 24, 1929 would probably be a pretty good example.
Yeah.
They said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, the US dollar was in 1913, Federal Reserve Act was signed. They started printing the US dollar in 1914. Suddenly we had a world war. I don't know how that happened. And we had 4 years of war. Then the New York Stock Exchange was blown up. Wall Street was blown up in 1920. No one knows who did it. They flattened it. 1923, there was a stock market crash. This all happened after the Federal Reserve started printing US dollars. And by 1929, it was all over. In fact, by 1933, when Roosevelt came to office, they shut the banks down and confiscated gold and silver. So that was the end of the US dollar. That took 20 years to ruin the dollar. And they had to go to war and get 44 nations to agree that the US was a superpower now, and we could probably make the US dollar the world reserve currency. Having crashed just 10 years earlier, the US dollar was basically, it was a unilateral trade. So the agreement was this piece of paper that is no longer backed by gold. It was backed by gold at the wholesale level, but the common man couldn't trade gold for 40 years. So my point is, US dollar traded unilaterally. They forced, basically, it was an agreement. You will use the US dollar.
Well, it is that. It's all about control. I think Raoul Paul's really being loud about it right now, and he's got some great infographic videos out that explain it. But if you look at the superpowers of the world, they come into power, and then what do they do? They make their currency everything that everyone has to abide by. And you can see it when Donald Trump's talking, and when Biden was in, he was saying, our dollar's losing its value and our strength, and this is going to end the USA. He literally said exactly what is going on. They need that to control the world and make them bend over to what they want to. So it comes with superpowers, it comes with control. And I think what, in my opinion, a lot of people misunderstand or overlook is they go, oh, it won't happen in my lifetime. The US dollar won't blow up in my lifetime until it does. Our generation has been incredibly fortunate. We haven't been through really a world war. My grandparents did, but when you go through that, I think that's when you realize, oh shit, we can't really rely on our government to do right, or we can't rely on these superpowers to do right. So,
well, there's only three things that back the US dollar. One is the military, two is the oil,
yes,
and three is confidence. Now, you only need the status quo to change marginally here. For example, the petrodollar. I mean, that's been the only reason after Bretton Woods was abandoned in 1971. The only reason the US dollar even survives as any realistic asset is because central banks, 60% of the central banks keep US dollars in reserve for the purposes of trading oil with Aramco and through the Middle East and so on. I mean, that was the agreement. Is there's no actual contract, but oil is traditionally sold in US dollars until such point that a couple of things change. You only need the status quo to change slightly. And one of the big problems for the US right now is, apart from the fact that its US dollar is now being shadowed, now we've got stablecoin, of course, which is the life support system for the US dollar effectively, but still backed by the same worthless treasuries. That the US, I mean, it's the same thing in a digital.
Pegged to it, right?
It's pegged to it.
Yeah.
So, really does it have any value? But my point here is one of the key players, and I researched every country. I don't just look at one country. I look at every country. You know, there's 195 sovereign nations on this planet. 193 of them are signatories to the United Nations. And of those, a lot of them are oil nations. A lot of them are big commodities nations. And commodities, if you have commodities, you have the power, right? And the US doesn't have all the commodities. Yes, they are big producers of oil, but they don't have the biggest oil reserves. They also now have started buying Bitcoin in their strategic reserve. Strategic, that's a very important word. But the game change here for the US could happen with one country. And it's the one country they leave alone in all Middle Eastern wars, apart from Israel. And there's one country they never touch, and that's because they did a deal in 1974 with them to sell oil through Aramco and the OPEC nations for US dollars, which keeps the US dollar relevant. Without that, it becomes irrelevant very quickly. So if central banks don't need US dollars, they're not going to keep them in reserve, which they're going to send them back to the mainland, and that's going to cause a massive problem for debt and liquidity in the US.
Something that's going through my mind is, these conversations are awesome. They're stimulating to have, and our listeners love listening to it, but you can't get the full message across in 1 hour, right?
Yeah.
Where can people find this research and information in your publications?
Books, videos. Well, we did have a massive channel, videos, Spotify.
Yep.
Patreon is another one I've got. That's a private channel. Yeah, that's a paid channel. So where I don't have time to kind of like, when I want to have the big 1 hour conversations, sometimes they go out to 2 hours.
Yep.
So I'll get people onto Patreon.
Yep.
If they really want to get grungy and deep with it. So,
well, in the links in the description of this video, and it's not finishing up at any, I want to ask a few more questions, but I will put your website.
Yes.
Personally, I recommend people read your publications. That's where they're going to get the guts of it.
Yes.
And then, of course, if you're someone who likes to be driving and listening into a new idea,
yes,
head to your Spotify. Is that right?
I would say just on the publications, 3 books. The first one was about gold, and silver investment. That's pretty much for people to get into gold and silver. The second one was about the history of silver, and the third one is really the one everybody wants to know about because that's the future. So if you really want to know what's going to happen going forward, and you're one of those guys, I'd get that's 2033 has been selling like hotcakes all over the world. So that's been a real hit for people that want it. People seem to want to know what's coming. They see that seems to be the videos and the messages that get the best traction. Is like, we know gold was confiscated, all that, but they want to know, but what now?
Yes, gotcha.
That's so the 2033 is a really good but what now book.
So I'll be honest, I've gotten to know you over probably the past week or two, and I've seen I followed your content, but really started chatting with you. I didn't realize that you were on the Bitcoin side so much now. I thought it was something that you are starting to expose yourself to, but I didn't realize that it was something you're so passionate about. My question is, with a portfolio strategy, 5 years ago, how heavy would you be in gold and silver? And fast forward to today, what's your comfort level at with exposure to Bitcoin? And what would you kind of encourage people to consider?
Great question. 5 years ago, commodities only, no digital at all. So I was, in fact, always been heavy silver. So our portfolios 5 years ago, for want of a better word, 75% silver, 25% gold. 5 years later, and thanks to meeting, certain Bitcoin broker, I don't know if I'm meant to mention them.
That's Bishop
from Stormrake. So my journey with Bitcoin. So prior to Bishop, we in the 2 years prior to Bishop, my channel was mainly altcoins, specifically the ISOs and XRP, and things like Hedera, and we had other positions in quant and these kinds of assets that we saw as part of the new banking rails of the new world. So I was very, very big into ISO for a while, and some of the layer ones, and then got into real world asset tokenization as well, the tokenization of real estate and stuff. So we had a lot of these high risk kind of essential, and then I had never touched Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the only, so we started as silver and gold, then we added the alts, and for a long time we ran with the alts, and then I got introduced to Bishop, and he said, so tell me what you do, and I said, well, we would like to know what's your thoughts, and he said, well, where's Bitcoin in this? And I said, I don't understand it. That's why I don't tell my clients about it. He said, would you like a lesson in it. And he took many, many months to educate me on it. I had to see it and feel it and breathe it and talk to many people and went to many seminars and learned a lot and read a lot. And I started to realize as I learned more about Bitcoin, and again, I no way I want to influence any of your followers, but I realized that this is a monetary asset, whereas the others weren't. The others were great for trading, but very high risk. So what happened was our portfolio had initially 75% silver, 25% gold. Then we shrunk down some of the metals to allow for alts, and we had like a 10% portfolio in alts. Now, no alts, virtually. I mean, like a sliver, because we're monetary. So we're only really our clients are older, so we tend to find that they don't want that high risk exposure. They want something more like a Bitcoin, which is still risk on, but it seems to be, he feels a lot more stable. Plus, it's pretty much half of the entire crypto space in its market cap. So I thought, actually, we can deal with this as a monetary asset. So now our portfolios are probably 55%, 60% silver, 30%. You're looking at BTR's portfolio, about 30% Bitcoin and about 10% gold. So it's about a 60-30, 10, 60 silver, 30 Bitcoin, 10. But these are big portfolios, I should say.
That is awesome to hear, to be honest. I sympathize in the fact of going to the alt side because a lot of our clients come to us where they've been very heavy in XRP for a long time. The terminology and the language that they use, I feel they've been caught into the XRP army. They're kind of, they're
an interesting bunch.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't discredit XRP as much as I used to. I think it's great. We've seen an ETF come through on it. But actually recently Mitch released on our YouTube a great episode that is very non-biased, like the 3 major things that XP we don't like about it, and then the 3 things that we think are great about it. But the way that we encourage our clients is to go Bitcoin first. So that's where you get your taste for digital, your taste for what is actually going on here. And really our strategy is we want to build exposure to Bitcoin, and we do that further by diversifying into some altcoins and running them up during the hype phases of them and then selling them off back into Bitcoin.
100%.
So I think there's probably 3, I reckon, altcoins that I actually, at the moment, feel like have great grounds. That would be Hyperliquid being one of them. It has massive revenue generation behind it. There's huge trading volume. It's solved a massive issue in terms of people being able to trade leverage, but in a decentralized way. So projects like that, I will continue to hold exposure, but I never get married to them.
Right.
I would say I'm married to Bitcoin. So as it stands right now, other than that quantum computing asterisk, which I think is miles off, and I think we'll figure things out. You know, I don't think it's going to destroy Bitcoin at all. But it's still, I don't have the answer to say it won't, so I can't say. But that's really what our strategy is. It's enter in with Bitcoin, build exposure to it as a starting point. Once you understand it, you've got your wallets, you're comfortable, okay, this space feels safe for me and I understand things better. Now there's opportunities that come up with what I call like a rat race, right? So a new altcoin comes out, it's trying to build something new, but it hasn't solved something yet, usually, okay? And so you get a whole heap of interest and investment into it, ride those early days, take a good chunk of profit out, have what we call a moon bag that, yes, if it continues to do it and it is the next revolutionary thing, great, but majority of them do come crashing down. And that's really how we help our clients. It is so hard to have a Bitcoin strategy, not too hard, okay? You can just dollar cost average into it, whatever. But to really capitalize on the swings and the volatility, we do all that for our clients. We send them the research, explain to them how it is. Mitch will send them the alert that, yes, we're actually going into this now. And that's when you can go, okay, it's all synced here. I don't have to worry about 50,000 YouTube videos that are contradicting each other, let alone having the time to be able to do all that research. It's hand delivered to you. So I love that you've kind of swinged not fully away from the altcoins, but more towards the Bitcoin. We're pretty much all in the Bitcoin.
Pretty much now. So in my third book, my latest book, I wrote a chapter called The 4 Positions of a Dollar. And this is really explains Beat the Reset's vision on how the monetary system functions. Position 1, you spend your dollars. They're gone. Bye. See you later. That's most people. Position 2, you save your dollars. And you do that because that's the first form of investment. Is just save it, but you stick it in a commercial bank. I love the word save.
Yeah.
Because if you said to me, I'm going off to save my children, I would have thought, hey, what's wrong with them? So when people say to me, I'm saving my dollars, I go, what's wrong with it? Why do you have to save it? Just let it die. Spend it. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
So number 1, you spend it. It's the most basic form of currency. Number 2 is your first form of investment, which I'll just save it. And they stick it in the commercial bank at 4% if you're lucky, and hope to hell that something happens here. And then position 3 is what we call trading positions. This is where people move beyond the savings mentality and they start moving into things like real estate. I'll buy and flip real estate. I'll buy altcoins. I'll go and buy stocks, shares, equities, bonds, annuities, treasuries, whatever it is you want to get into, CFDs. That's all position 3. And the reason they get into position 3 is they know that that's better than position 2 and far better than position 1. So I'm going to do position 3. But then there's one more position, and that's where BTR spends its entire life, and that's in position 4. And that is taking all the gains from position 3 and putting them into assets that store value over time. So
very similar strategy. Yeah.
It's triggered. That's what you triggered when you said it. Is that you make your gains, but you must secure the gains.
Yes.
If you leave them as a gain in a position 3, then you can shift them around to other position 3 assets that are going to run as well. And you have to really know. You've got to be a day trader. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to know what's going to run. But for my clients who are, they're kind of like a little more conservative, you need to take the gain and then you need to secure it. In other words, anchor it in something that has values. That's why Bitcoin's so interesting to us, because you could go and, you could get into Hyperliquid, learn from you guys how to trade this thing to get some enormous, maybe through leverage, you just get some enormous upside. But then if you sit in that upside, you've got to understand the high risk of that. That's extreme high risk to us. Move it to Bitcoin, secure it, and then go again. So in other words, what we're trying to do is we're trying to basically say, no problem having position 3. That's where you get a lot of volatility in there and a lot of risk. But if you're looking to secure that capital gain over time, move it to something that can do it. Gold can do it, silver can do it, Bitcoin can definitely do it. And there are other assets. For example, we have another part of our portfolio, which I haven't mentioned, called fine art and collectibles, which are your kind of niche, very low, slow to move.
I love that side. This watch, I'm not really usually a flashy person or anything like that, but I actually initially bought it as a long-term hold. It's something, it was a bit of a reward to myself in terms of milestones that I hit, but I bought a right-handed watch. I knew that Rolex were looking to cancel that out and that they wouldn't make them anymore. So it was an investment, and same as my ring, it's gold, it's an investment, it's kind of the fine art part of the portfolio. It's a little bit flashy. You get to, wear and feel nice and go to events with it, but at the same time, it holds a portion of my investment portfolio too.
So, an example of fine art and collectible, 57 Chevy Bel Air is a numismatic. It will store value. A 1972 Holden HQ Monaro is a numismatic. The only difference is it has a specific buyer, but it will store value over time, and it doesn't have it doesn't have all the things that a monetary asset have. In other words, it's not really that portable. I guess it's a car, but it's not homogenous. You can't split it up. It's missing some of the forms of money, but it's still monetary. So we have, right down the far end of our portfolio, this extreme area of long-term dynastic wealth, because these assets are dynastic. They're the sorts of assets that people would inherit, like a Rolex watch. Rolex most definitely is part of the numismatics class, absolutely.
That's awesome. You talked about your fund. Tell me, so I want to get involved with BTR. It starts with a consultation.
Yeah.
Is that
correct? We don't have a fund as such because we are providers of assets.
Yes.
So we just facilitate. So if you've got an asset that's monetary, we just connect our client with you, and what we're involved in is the education through our consultations.
Yep.
That's where it predominantly starts.
The exact same model as Imperial Wealth, by the way.
Very similar model to you. Actually, when we were talking yesterday, I could see that they were very similar. You've got your social media, which is here's some information for you.
Yes.
People then come to you saying, well, I want to know more.
Yes.
Straight into consults.
Yes.
We've got staff that work for us, so they'll do the consultations for you. And then we're not there to sell you anything. People always buy, but we're not there to sell you anything because if we get the education part right and you see what we see, it's like when you go into a car yard and the car guy goes, you need to buy this car. Well, you can tell me that, but I don't see why.
Why? Yeah.
You know?
I call it the doctor mentality. You go to a doctor, you explain your arm's bent, and they say, take this pill. You go, well, why? But they explain, the symptoms, why that's happened. This is the best. These are the solutions. These are the options. Now you trust them. And you go, okay.
Education, right? Yep. So people will always buy, and informed buyers will buy. So we aim to with that model of let's give as much information as we can. We're not withholding anything. We're transparent. We want you to know what these things can do. Why are you buying it? Why are you holding it? How do you trade it? How do you sell it? When would you sell it? Why would you sell it? Do you even have to sell it?
Yep.
So that's really the point. So we just connect people with the assets. The reason we've got our own Bullion company now is because we want to be the person providing the asset. We've got, obviously ways to connect people with Bitcoin. But my point here is that the most important part is knowing what you need to do, but why and also when. Like people say, okay, well the market's going down. I've got to sell. Guys, so we work to three basic. When a market's running, we people ask because people trade with emotion all the time. Look,
half our job is training people on psychology.
Emotion, right? Like it's all over. I mean, it's like Bitcoin. Bitcoin was at one stage it was like at zero. Like in 2009, no one wanted it. I actually had a guy that bought Bitcoin virtually day one, day two. So he bought it and he kept it. And he rang us up and he said, I've got some Bitcoin. And I said, how much? He goes, about 10,000. I said, $10,000 worth of Bitcoin? No worries. He goes, no, I've got
10,000 of them.
10,000 Bitcoin. I said, sorry? Now, it didn't mean anything back in 2009 because it was fairy dust back then.
Yeah.
But now...
Could have been 10,000.
but isn't it interesting? Here we have this mentality that, Bitcoin could go to zero. But yet he just told me, this was a couple of years ago, I've got 10,000 Bitcoin. And I was sitting there thinking, I couldn't even work it out on my calculator. My calculator didn't go far enough. So I guess... So for us, it's a really simple strategy. First of all, we assess, is an asset monetary? Bitcoin definitely is. So there's no problem for us. We don't have any more conversations after that.
Yep.
Once I establish that, yes, this matches, this is a monetary asset, all I need now to do is to say to you, what risk are you able to hold? If you can't hold risk, buy gold. If you can hold a little bit of risk, buy silver. If you're really bullish, include Bitcoin. So what I notice with my clients, I can tell their characters by the size of the type of balance in their portfolio. We've got some older people that go, I want all Bitcoin. I just want to feel the markets go up and down.
Yeah.
So we say this to our clients. When the market is running to the high side, just hold. There's nothing for you to do. You just experience what it's like to have a market run.
Yep.
But markets, what goes up must come down. So as the markets run flat, we want you to DCA, went to dollar cost average, and as they run low, you buy. So people say, but why are you telling me to buy the asset when the market's down? Because when your jeans are 50% off sale, you buy them.
Spot on.
When was the last time somebody walked in a shop and go, no, I'm going to wait for these to triple in price? But when do people buy? When the market goes up. We cannot figure out, and you've seen this, people buy when people won't buy Bitcoin at 60,000.
It's hilarious, and I love it because the exact strategy I'm doing right now. I'm posting on my socials that I'm buying $1,000 Bitcoin every single day. Well, why am I doing that? Because it's clearly in a downward trend. Now, do I think we're at the bottom? No, I don't necessarily think I'm at the bottom. When we're at the bottom, that's when I'll be doing exactly what you say, is buying large amounts of it. But for the moment, when there's uncertainty and we haven't found the bottom, it could bounce up tomorrow. And for the people waiting for the bottom, they picked up nothing. So I DCA. And then for me, and this comes from our analysis from our head analyst, Mitch, we're looking at certain levels around 54K to 58K. If we hit those levels, I'll be buying $10,000 to $20,000 parcels.
Yeah, increase
the DCA, and I won't be buying every day. Now I'll be waiting for certain levels to be hit. But just on that way down, you DCA, you get an average over that downward point. Don't let the emotions get in the way. And then when you hit those serious levels, now I go, okay, for me, bang, I'm happy to increase a larger portion there. So
it's interesting because I remember when Bitcoin was like 45, 50,000. we were out at lunch one day, and my good friend Bishop said, one day Bitcoin will hit 100,000. I said, oh, look, on that day, we're taking everybody to Bali. Well, guess what? We ended up taking a lot of people to Bali, right? And then it ran to 118 when we were in Bali, and then it went up. It kind of jumped around and went to 126 or so, somewhere there.
I was in Singapore at the time. I remember where I was.
Celebrations, right? But you always know that something's going to balance this market out. So it's okay to celebrate the wins.
Yes.
But always have your strategy. And I always say to my clients, it was like what happened with silver recently. Silver took forever to break $50 US an ounce, and then it took off to
15 years or
forever.
Yeah.
Forever. It's only been there twice in its history. And it took forever. And then it took off and it went to about 120 USD. And then all of a sudden, the blow off top move, no support at 120.
Yep.
Problems with supply. Everybody was buying because people buy when the markets go up. So obviously you're going to have a supply problem. It's a physical product. No one could get OTC. So all of a sudden it takes a downward turn. And then all the haters come out, right? It's like now we're dealing with all the people we have to talk them off the edges of buildings and things. Come down. You don't need to throw your life away now. It'll move again, right?
And I think that's the importance of getting skin in the game, because until you have skin in the game and you felt that euphoria of it being at 120, you felt that emotion of it being down. Now the next cycle that you go through of when it's at that euphoria, maybe I take a little bit off the table. That's a sign. Maybe I can take 20% of what I'm holding off the table for when it comes back down to re-inject it, right?
Right.
And then when it's really in the dumps and you're kind of going, oh my God, I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on your portfolio side, that's the sign of maybe I put a bit into the market. So it's literally just doing the opposite. I think education, some things we talked massively on. The massive point for us is community as well.
Yes.
Every single one of our clients is talking in our Discord on these days, and I bet you they wake up in the morning going, oh my God, should I get out?
Yeah.
They get in the Discord, everyone's going, this is a fire sale, let's increase
100% community. That is so awesome to hear. Community, we've got this thing called the BTR family, and they just talk. They've learnt so much. Like, do you know what I love? You probably see this too, that the community when we first started, people asking all the basic, now they're getting into the bigger questions. Like, okay, so if I leverage here and I check it, it's like, now they're really talking. It's like, wow, I love this. So
honestly, and you shared your journey at the start, when Cal and I first started our business, 2 years we weren't making good money. Like I'd made good money in the foreign exchange industry. I was in a fortunate enough position, although I was Uber driving at the time to keep things going. I loved what I was doing with Mining Store and Imperial Wealth, but it was all about the community. It was all about every single client that we brought on board to mining or to getting into Bitcoin, whatever, building an altcoin exposure, was getting them in the community, and they all stayed and we all grew together, and that's where we are today, where it's a safe place, and it's educational place, and that's where wealth comes from. Those two things first.
Well, we drill into our clients because of the emotion. We pretty much do what you do. We drill into our clients that you buy on the dips, buy on the dips. People write to me and they'll say, Tim, I'm devastated. I go, why? This is exciting. They go, Bitcoin's it's going down towards 60,000. I go, and we hope it goes lower.
Opportunity.
And I said, because I said, you remember where Bitcoin used to be? Yeah, it was at 126. Remember those days? I said, you do understand there is no opportunity when an asset is going up. Zero.
Yeah.
None. You're in the trade already. You're either in the trade or you're not. So there's no opportunity. The only opportunity comes from when the market drops.
Exactly.
That's where your opportunity comes from. And I say to my clients, do you remember what you said to me when Bitcoin was at 126? You said, I wish I bought
more.
Right? You heard that before?
Oh, every single time.
So the universe is listening to you.
Yeah.
It gave you what you asked for. It's dropped it by 50%. Now you can go and buy more of it. Oh, but do you reckon it could go lower? I do. I also reckon it could go higher. So at this point, it's monetary. And because it's monetary, it's undervalued, has zero counterparty risk. It is decentralized, and it is monetary at its base. So we don't really care what the price point is.
Exactly right.
Don't look at the price.
You weren't planning on selling it, If you don't...
I love that. If you never plan on... It's like real estate.
Yeah.
If you're going to sit in a box for your entire life, it doesn't really matter what it's worth. Why go and get an evaluation on a property you never plan to sell?
Yeah, exactly. It's value to you as your lifestyle and whatnot.
It has zero value. An asset that you don't plan to... I remember years ago hearing this... again, I'm not a fan of Warren Buffett, but I'm going to quote him. He said that if you never plan to sell an asset, it has a zero value. It is only really worth what anybody's going to pay for it. So, so don't.
You could say the Mona Lisa is worth nothing. It's not going to be sold to anyone.
Mona Lisa is worth nothing. You can tell me that it's the most valuable art piece on the planet. That's great, but if you never sell it, then it's never liquidated. So then it's just really in the form of appreciation, and that's like all numismatics, like your watch. Your watch will become incredibly valuable over time, but you're not really planning on selling it.
No.
So in actual fact, what is its value? It's intrinsic.
Exactly.
So we treat monetary assets the same. We treat them. We say to people, you must treat monetary assets like an orchard. You plant an orchard and it grows fruit. When the fruit grows, do you go and cut the orchard down? No. Why? Because I want to grow more fruit next year. Right. So because people used to say to us...
Skim from it,
right? Yeah. People used to say to us, when can I sell my silver? When can I sell my gold? When can I sell all my Bitcoin? Never.
No.
Because if you do that, you have no wealth assets.
And I think that one is... right now, you don't know where the bottom's going to be. You don't know where the top's going to be. No one knows. Otherwise, they would be the richest person on earth. So stop believing that there's all these gurus out there that are going to be able to make you pick the bottom and you're going to get this huge position in right down there. It doesn't work like that. Otherwise, as I say, there would be incredibly, incredibly rich people out there. You can only position yourself into markets. So, I guess start small, build exposure over time, get comfortable with it, and as time goes on, you will make better decisions. But Tim, thank you so much for coming on today.
Been great.
I think we could talk all day, to be honest.
No, and that's what always happens to me. We go every time I'm on these podcasts, people go, we've gone 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
And they normally have to chop it all up.
Yeah. Well, I like the organic content. Everyone can listen into it, but I'm really looking forward to understanding your community better. Wherever we can provide education, but provide some more strategy, would love
Definitely.
to. But it's the start of a good journey.
Definitely.
Between Beat the Reset.
Looking forward to doing some work with you, actually.
Can't wait for it. Thanks so much.
Pleasure.
Take care.